The first time I toured Anabolic Laboratories manufacturing facility, I was stunned. That was back in 1998, and it's 2021 right now. So prior to that, I visited a couple other facilities, and they had none of the machines that you see in this image, because this is actually an image of one of Anabolic's manufacturing facilities, their laboratory, to identify and make sure that the product is what the product is supposed to be. Now, the only thing that's not legit in this image would be these pictures here, because otherwise it would have been just blank screens. Otherwise, it's all what a proper manufacturing facilities laboratory looks like. Now, I took my first tour, as I said, back in 1998, and subsequently I've had friends and colleagues, sometimes by themselves, sometimes with me, tour the facility, and they are equally amazed. And in that context, there's an important issue that people bring up, and they want to know. People ask me a lot, like, which magnesium supplement is the best? Is it glycinate, fumarate, malate, citrate, oxide, whatever? Or they'll say, this multivitamin has X, Y, Z in it. Is that good? And that is actually not the right question. The right question is, who is making your supplements? Now notice here, so I hear the term pharmaceutical grade supplements forever and ever. And I realized when I visited Anabolic Labs that they deliver what would be called pharmaceutical made supplements, because they have strong pharmaceutical controls on their manufacturing. Now, why is this relevant? It's because pharmaceutical made versus pharmaceutical grade are entirely different scenarios. And what do I mean by that? Well, how many of you every morning take your fresh coffee beans out of the refrigerator or freezer and you grind them up? Well, imagine trying to put the coffee beans through a pill-making machine. It would be impossible. You got to grind them up. And so what you end up with is pharmaceutical grade coffee. So you can see here, there's a huge misconception. Pharmaceutical grade nutrients does not mean that the substance, the nutrient, has been assayed for purity and potency. Huge issue. So I just mentioned about grinding up coffee. Well, here's a coffee grinder. You grind it up and you get basically ground up coffee. Not dissimilar from ground up oatmeal. So if you were to take oatmeal, put it into a coffee grinder or into a grain grinder, you get pharmaceutical grade oatmeal. You grind up the coffee, you get pharmaceutical grade coffee. Now, why is this important? Because pill making machines need powder. They don't need coffee beans or flakes of oats. You have to grind it up, and that's what this means. If ground up substances are pharmaceutical grade, you could ground up rocks, ground up limestone, ground up coquina rocks, whatever it is, and if you can get it down to this level of grade, it is now pharmaceutical grade. It has nothing to do with nutrient density, purity, potency, anything at all. So with that in mind, this was published back in 2010. You can just Google this title if you wish, or whatever search engine you use, and you should read in the second paragraph, the average vitamin D content from 10 over-the-counter brands was only 33% of label claims. Now the range, this is stunning. The range was, so you take out a vitamin D pill, capsule or tablet, and you assay it. So they found that there was less than 1% up to as high as only 82% of the advertised label claim. That should make you very concerned about who's making your supplements. Not if they have a couple hundred extra milligrams of whatever it is on the label. You want to choose a company based upon how the products are manufactured, and that's why you should choose Anabolic, or at least consider Anabolic. So outcome of making superior nutritional products. So here is just a basic statement first. Companies that do not check nutrient levels during and after production will never know if the nutrient levels are consistent and meet the level stated on the bottle. So with that in mind, if you are a good manufacturer, you will throw away batches on rare occasions. Now, why is that? Well, for some odd reason. So at one point, for some odd reason, they still don't know why, Anabolic had to destroy 500,000 tablets of a chewable multi for children because the level of folic acid was inconsistent in the tablets. It was supposed to be at least 400 micrograms. So they destroyed it and they assayed what they had as the blend, and it was fine. But they, for whatever reason, it didn't translate into the pills. So they had to destroy them. Now, if you want to know about which company you should buy products from, you should buy from a company like Anabolic, who is so ethical, they end up having to destroy products on rare occasions because of this. So another outcome, raw materials are regularly returned. So Anabolic at one point received a shipment of CoQ10. This is a great story because CoQ10 is orangey-ish in color, yellowy orangey-ish, and so is riboflavin. And so when they assayed the CoQ10 through several layers of analytical devices, I'll show you in a couple of minutes, they found out that it kind of looked like CoQ10 on some of the machines, the analytic machines, but when they used a special analytical machine that showed 3D, they found that it was actually folic acid and riboflavin, not CoQ10. So that should make you very concerned about who's making your products. So a friend of mine visited Anabolic, and he was in the quarantine section, and I'll show you how that works in a little while. And there was this Hoodia container, and it was rejected despite what is called a certificate of analysis. This means that the raw material manufacturer, the raw material supplier, delivered a certificate of analysis stating that there was Hoodia in the Hoodia. So they had the certificate of analysis, but it was rejected. So why was it rejected? Why was it rejected? And the reason why is because there was no Hoodia in the Hoodia. Imagine that. So again, that should make you consider very carefully who you're buying products from. So this is an image that was created several years ago, and you can see the URL that you can go to and get this right now if you want. And down in the description for this video, I will provide a link for this so you can link right to it and get it yourself. So here is the image on the piece, and all I did was replace it with a white powder. And the reason why is because if you were going to be getting, say, turmeric and it was white, you'd know that would be wrong because turmeric is orange. But most nutrients, vitamins, minerals are white. So before going further, well, a lot of people don't like to listen to long videos, and I get that. So all you have to do right now, if you want, is go and get that PDF, and you can read this exact description on your own and not listen to me. But if you want to listen to me, I'm going to go through the whole process step by step. So the first thing that happens is you got to quarantine whatever raw material is coming in, because again, you don't know what the raw material is. Because aspirin looks like this, cocaine looks like this, heroin looks like powdered, every drug practically, and most nutrients are white powders. So you got to identify them. So you got to quarantine them first. What happens after quarantining? Well, we're going to go through all those steps. So after quarantining, the quality control lab identifies through the use of multiple analytical machines. So here they are. Lots of them. Look at these. See if you can recognize these. I took quantitative chem lab when I was an undergraduate, and we had to basically take a white powder and identify what it was. Well, that's what happens when you're making medications or supplements. You got to make sure that what is going to be in the supplement is actually what it's supposed to be. So you have to identify the substance and make sure that it is what it's supposed to be. And then you got to test it for microbes to make sure it is not contaminated. All of these machines, all these analytical machines are used for that purpose. So if raw materials meet quality control specifications, they are then released into manufacturing. So what happens first? Well, when you make a supplement, you put, now this is called a V blender. It's massive. It's like the size of like a Mini Cooper. Look, this guy's 6 feet tall. This was either me or the guy I did the tour with. So it's huge. This guy is 6 feet, I'm 6'2". So this is like, again, like almost a little VW Bug or a Mini Cooper. So you just imagine a multivitamin. You take multiple, I mean, dozens of nutrients, and you blend them in this. And then they have to go from this massive Mini Cooper into like the size of my pinky fingernail, and make sure that the dispersion, the balance of nutrients in the blender equal that to what is in the pill or capsule the size of my fingernail. So after the ingredients are blended, they're loaded into tableting or encapsulation machines. And where is this done? In environmentally controlled rooms. They're maintained at proper temperature, humidity to prevent microbial contamination and airborne particulate cross-contamination. So they have HEPA filters and a certain airflow to make sure there's no contamination. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable to witness in person. Next step, throughout the process, supplements are tested. For what purpose? To meet predetermined standards as weight, hardness, and friability, which means durability. So this is what it means. So imagine this. So imagine if you produce supplements, say in California, you ship them to New York, they're going to be shaken around. So if they're not hard enough, they will fracture and damage and be powdered by the time they get to New York. So you have to make them hard enough not to fall apart, but soft enough to disintegrate, break down in the digestive system. So after the supplements that are being made, this is during manufacturing, are made, then when the finished product, so after it is tested for weight, hardness, and friability, it is then brought into the quality control labs to determine what? Potency first, which means is what is going to be on the label is in the pill. And then it goes through what's called disintegration. Now, disintegration testing means it mimics the digestive process. And then if it's a time-release product, it has to go through dissolution testing. So this is a disintegration apparatus, and this is a dissolution apparatus. I'm not going to explain how they work. You can call up your anabolic rep and ask them, and they'll explain it to you. So assuming that the time-release product or the regular product meets disintegration and dissolution testing standards, it then goes into, now look at this. So how do you determine shelf life? Well, you got to put it into what's called a stability chamber. So a constant high temperature and humidity, which accelerates shelf life to make sure that the product label claims will meet the duration of the product. So how do you do that? Well, you got to bring it back to testing afterwards. So it goes back to the lab for testing again. For what? Both potency and microbial growth. I had no idea. The first company I ever visited just was like a barn. It had dirt floors, and it had big old containers of raw materials, and it had a pill making machine room. I mean, that's all. I saw that twice. That's what I thought it was until I came to Anabolic back in '98, and I was, as I said, I was stunned. I was amazed. So after all this is done and it passes, now you can actually put the product into. Now I put a multi here because multis are the most difficult to make because they've got dozens of products in some multis. So you have to make sure you go through this entire process. And so, in conclusion, these exacting manufacturing standards guarantee the exceptional quality of all of your Anabolic Laboratories supplements. So if you didn't know this, well, now you do. Because again, you could have read this on your own. And my suggestion would be to download this image so that you have it in your office, because you can print it out, or you can call up Anabolic and they can send it to you so you can show your patients, your customers, so that you know the level of quality that you are delivering to your clients, patients, customers. And make sure also, again, here is the link down below.